So tomorrow is the US election 2024. I already know who the winner is of the election, regardless of which particular person gets voted in. The winner is always God. There is only God. The imagery and the particulars of what seems to be the comings and goings of an election is nothing more than an opportunity in the potential of choice for me to choose again in what it is that I want to see. I either have an interest, a vested interest in an election with an outcome and a winner and a loser and all of these sorts of things, or I live by the grace of God and I'm completely unconcerned about all such things, completely unconcerned about all of the stories of bodies and winners and losers and all of these sorts of things. Partly in the realization that whatever occurs was what was meant to occur, and whatever occurs is what did occur, and partly in the realization that there's nothing occurring at all, which may seem difficult to comprehend, but if you can begin to understand that the world is an illusion, that you're not really sitting there watching this video of me right here, right now, but you're instead being presented in mind, in your own mind, because that's where you're hearing, visualizing everything. I don't know why I do this with my hands in my head, as if your mind is somehow inside this little skull. But in mind, you're already being presented these prompts to go within, prompts to choose again about what it is that you want. And not just in regards to an election or an outcome in the world, but what it is that you want overall. All right, now God's will for you is perfect happiness. So let me choose that. Let me choose for perfect happiness and not let that happiness be determined by outcomes in the world, not let that happiness be determined by winners and losers and things of that nature, but instead be determined by the nature of my own being. Time and space itself, or the dream, the illusion, is a place that exists solely for one purpose: to remember the self. Anything other than that, anything that seems to appear other than that, is not remembering the self. However, there is a place in the mind where the self is already remembered. There is a place in consciousness where the realization and the recognition of that remembering, of that experiential connection or revelation or of the self, it's hard to talk about, where it's already occurred, right? The world is actually already over, never having existed in the first place, and I can't explain that to you. And even when I had my revelation, the idea that it never existed in the first place and it doesn't exist now made perfect sense. But I'm downstream, seemingly presenting this downstream of the revelation that I had and the subsequent experiences that followed downstream from all that. Very much now embedded in my role, let's say, as a teacher, representative of an alternative, of a better way, and the actual machinations of things as how can that possibly be, and why is it possibly so. All of that sort of stuff no longer really has any interest to me. It's like there's a place in my mind where I've accepted it. As crazy as that sounds, I'm not sitting here now talking to you. And the only way I can actually explain it in a sci-fi kind of a way is in the movie The Matrix, where Neo is taken out of the Matrix by his friend Morpheus and crew, taken out of the Matrix and then put back in to fight the character called Smith. Right? But when he's put back in, he's aware that he's not actually in there. He's back with Morpheus and everyone's sitting in a chair. And that's exactly how I'm operating here. Despite that you might find that incredibly difficult to believe. But I can tell you, and there's another great scene in there where he wakes up in the red jelly. The first time he wakes up from the Matrix and he looks around and he sees everyone else in the red jelly. Well, at this point in time and space, most people are still in the red jelly. I'm an early awakener. Now, if you take the science fiction element out of it and you put in light, angels, and other things like that, it makes more sense. But it still doesn't make it any easier to grasp, any easier to comprehend, and the nature of what you thought life was before watching this video to what your mind is being directed that life is more like is going to be a vast span of intellect, of consciousness to try and traverse and to grasp and to sort of wrap your head around. And without the text and workbook, 365 lessons workbook of A Course in Miracles, which you can Google it online, A Course in Miracles, you would find it virtually impossible to not only grasp conceptually what I'm trying to tell you now, but to integrate it into your life in a way where it actually brings changes that show you the nature of what I'm telling you is actually true. We have people now in our Zoom meetings who are beginning to report back that they're seeing lights and things are appearing and disappearing, or whatever's going on, like things like phenomena is happening. And that comes specifically through the use of the workbook. And getting guidance as well, getting good spiritual guidance from on high. We're all very much babes in the wood at this. We're all very new at this, and the idea of sitting back quietly in the face of what seems to be going on in the world and listening for guidance regarding our concerns about it, not about it specifically, but about our state of mind regarding it, is something that takes a little bit of discipline, a bit of devotion, and a bit of getting used to. In fact, a lot of getting used to. One of the things that I really love, and every time, see if I can express this, every time I start talking and a stream of context goes out and around and it comes all the way back around to make a point, right? To try and make a point, to try and make something that I'm attempting to say reasonable. And I have to cover all these bases so that whoever's listening, they at least have some hope of being able to enter into a point of grasping something about what I'm saying. Every time I do that, I'm brought back to my own point of realization, my own personal atonement. It goes all the way around, all the way back. And there I am back to where I came from before, back to the whole reason that I would want to say anything in the first place, which is only one, to continually remind myself that I'm not a body in a world, because the world is incredibly convincing, right? The Matrix, if you like, is incredibly convincing. Every single thing about it speaks for its reality. And all I have is a moment out of time which illuminated my mind and reminded me that my creative origins are eternal and formless, as we all and everything is, which helps me in my attempt to teach the universal curriculum in order to collapse time between Alpha and Omega, collapse the time of suffering for everybody. If you look at the dream or the illusion or this experience, the human experience, as a kind of a virus and the atonement or the resurrection as the healing of that, the antivirus within the virus. Well, I represent the antivirus. I don't know if that's a really great analogy, but it's hard to find words. So I bring myself back all the time, bang, all the time, bang, to where I'm truly at, right? My teaching helps to reinforce that. It makes things more helpful for others, perhaps. I often have people say, man, I found your videos, and all of a sudden the course makes sense, and things like that. So, but you've got to watch quite a few videos. I know that because my teacher's teacher was prolific in making videos. My teacher specifically wasn't. He did make some videos. He made quite a lot of audio tracks, which I have, and unfortunately the technology back in those days wasn't so great, and they're very crackly, and there's only a few of them that are particularly useful. But the nature of teaching and learning helps to keep you focused, helps to keep you awake in the dream. So as Neo went back into the dream, let's say to fight the Smith character, if he wasn't about that business, fighting the Smith character, he would forget his purpose in the dream and probably fall in love with a girl, buy a house, and the next thing you know, why am I even here? Right? All over again. So you've got to keep yourself awake in the dream. You've got to be about it. You've got to be about your Father's business. And in this continuum, in this particular purposefulness that I'm expressing through that business is mind training, it is healing, and all sorts of things. But every time I come around, right, so boom, finger on the nose again, it reminds me of the truth. I'm one with all things. I'm one with all things. It's like in Star Wars, the Rogue One. I love that Rogue One, the blind character. I'm one with the Force is in me, I think was his mantra. But it reminds me that I'm one with all things, and that I have already accepted in my own mind atonement for myself, and therefore experienced the unity with God or with Source. But in that reminding, a lot of things happen, right? A lot of things happen. There is, and this morning I woke up with a particularly nice little unfolding that in my more viral video, I think we're up to about 350,000 views, which is, I don't know that that's particularly viral, but it's pretty good for me if I really gave a damn about it. But in that video, I was trying to explain the idea of how long it takes a beam of light, let's say, or a particle of light, to be registered in the retina from the sun. And it was like science has worked it out, traveling at the speed of light, 8 minutes it takes for that particle of light to come and boop, and I register. And by the time it's reached my eye, where I'm looking at the sun in the sky, and don't go out looking at the sun, it's not good for you. Where I'm looking at the sun in the sky, it's already moved across the sky 8 minutes worth, right? Which is however much that is in the heavens there. But so what I'm seeing in the sky is not actually there. My mind's telling me it's there based on what was there 8 minutes ago. Now, the universe in the same regard is no longer here, right? It was healed in the resurrection 2,000 years ago, where Jesus atoned for death, and boom, done. All things that are underscored by death, time and space, healed in that moment. The particulars of the lingering of the dream, or of the illusion of still existing, is solely dependent on the individual under the auspices of being given free will, which is an illusion. But, let's deal with it as it was originally intended to be, an illusion of free will, so you could experience what it's like to be separate, right? Turns out it's pretty terrible, but the nature then of the surrendering of that free will and the entering into a recognition of divine will or unity will is something that also brings about the little unfolding moments of clarity with regards to the overall situation, where not only is that from the sun 8 minutes and I'm 8 minutes further down the track, sort of thing, but when I'm thinking about something, right, let's do it internally instead of externally with the sun. When I'm thinking about something and I want to say it, the saying is downstream of the thinking, maybe by just a micro fraction of a thought, right? But the thought's already occurred to me, what I'm going to say, and therefore I'm going to say it out here in the dream, which is slow time, slow space, and everything else. But it's actually already been said, right? In a place where I'm factoring in a relativity with the external environment as if it was actually being presented to me here and now, and it's not. It's already actually over, right? But I'm not realizing that it's already over because I'm still interacting with it here in the conscious level of mind as if it was still going on and perpetuating it through either anticipating it for the future or remembering it from the past. Okay? When I understand and when I take on board in my own mind that I'm reacting to figures in a dream as if they were still actually there, I look at things like the US election, which is tomorrow, and it's like, well, of course it's already over because the world is already over. Everything's already done. Everything is already complete by the grace of God, right? God's creation is fully complete, as above, so below. I'm factoring in little segments of it, or let's say 100 years of it in my own physical experience through this avatar, as an idea of looking at the will of God, looking at my relationship with God. And I'm either going to see myself as separate from it or joined with it, one with it. Ultimately, that connection, that oneness with it on earth, changes my consciousness completely to a state of unity consciousness, and then higher and lower communication begins to occur instead of this sort of linear communication here that takes time and space, which is why people can experience moments of clairvoyancy and all sorts of stuff. You actually begin to get in touch with the originating source of the dream, of the idea, of whatever it is that's contained within the full spectrum of the potential of the experience, of the human experience. And you begin to have these moments of clarity, of recognizing and remembering the script, right? I remember the story, right? Which is exactly what clairvoyancy is. Clairvoyancy is one of the gifts of the Spirit. In the Bible, it's listed as one of the gifts of the Spirit. And as the mind connects, you get helpful little hints, and you get told things, and you get shown things about yourself, about others, about whatever it is. Ultimately, there are no others. The others are just opportunities to put your finger on your nose and accept that I'm not separate from this person, this situation, or this event that you may be concerned about or maybe not concerned about. But the thing is, if you're telling yourself you're not concerned about it and it's still showing up and you're having thoughts about it and interacting with it, then you are concerned about it. So the idea that it's already over and already done, I'm reacting and interacting with a dream that's already over, or figures in my dream that no longer exist, that aren't actually there, right? I become aware of my internalizing. I become aware of where it is that I want to say something or interact with something as if it was there. Because that was the old script. That was the old story, that it's still a complete story and it still runs. It's like the story of, let's say, Dave, being born as a little Dave and growing up to big Dave, getting old and crankety and becoming dust. Right, so within that frame, that story still runs. But somewhere in the middle of that story, Jesus grabs a hold of him and goes, I think you're ready to take on board a little bit more, to understand a bit more about the celestial nature of life, etc., etc. And you're showing promise, maybe, or desperation, maybe. And I'm going to give you some guidance. And you start to hear voices and things start to like, am I going crazy, right? Eventually you become totally crazy. You're just like everybody else around you who's still convinced that the world's 100% real, looks at you like, what the hell is this person on about, but there's no way, those who God calls will attend the call. You can't avoid it. You can try and avoid it. You'll drive yourself crazier, quicklier. But the interacting with the figures in the dream, it's like all of a sudden, because I'm becoming aware that I'm able to make a new choice. I'm not sure if I'm getting a bit of glare on here, but the sun's right there. Because I'm being made aware of a new choice that's available to me, I'm learning that instead of reacting to the figures in the dream, to drop back and see where it is I want to react. And I actually become aware of what it is that I already want to say there before the mouthpiece says it, right? This is what I could say, but I can choose to say something else based on a new goal, a new awareness, a new whole thing going on for me that God would have me say instead of that. And I can learn to ask about all of that so that when I do say something, or if I do say something, it's reflecting a higher perspective that not only brings me into a greater awareness of the power of that higher perspective in my own life to be able to make choices that benefit me, but also that benefit others. So somebody asked me a question, for example, and automatically, the ego speaks first, automatically I hear in my own mind, if I'm observing myself, I hear in my own mind the response formulated. And I get to choose, do I want to say that? Is that what I really want to say? Or would I rather say something else? And then I drop back again and I listen. I'm going to say this instead. I'm just going to put this perspective forwards instead. And there will be, at first anyway, there will be all those concerns. Oh my God, what if they think I'm crazy? Or what if all these, And you can't be concerned about that. You will be, but you've got to let go of it. Sometimes the things that you find yourself saying in the dream, and this is all for the collapse of time, remember, the collapse of suffering. Sometimes the things that you find yourself saying are going to be seemingly not relative to what's going on, right? So yesterday, for example, in our Zoom meeting, there was a young woman who's dealing with a particularly trying situation with a disease in her life, etc. And when I reached out to her, right, mentally and through the symbols of the physical expression, I was confirmed in my own mind something that seemingly had no relevance to, at first, to the situation at hand, about a particular vision I was shown of her going swimming, and that was like, what does that have to do with the situation that's showing up? And really, I don't know, but when I offered her the vision and offered her the input that I got regarding her situation, she could relate to it, and she could relate to it in a way that made sense regarding her particular situation and how she was dealing with her situation, right? Which can then be changed, can then be looked at again. But to me, it was like, what's this got to do? And there was a moment in my mind where I was asking, like, show me how this fits with what I'm looking at here and what's being presented. And there was nothing came forth. I just knew that I had to present it. I knew that I had to give it forward, no matter how crazy or how ridiculous it might have seemed. And it was well received, I think. And then, but also mentally, I was aware that there was a few other guys in our Zoom that also picked up on the relevance of the information regarding the situation being presented as an idea of an action of mind. And that's all you're ever looking at, is an action of mind. Where am I choosing for God? Or where am I choosing for the illusion? Where am I choosing my identity to be a body? Or where am I choosing that my identity is divine? sometimes you can backtrack and you can find yourself in a situation where you're wondering, how did I get into this pickle? How did I get into this mess? And if you're honest and you're willing to be shown, you can see the nature of your thinking that has led you down that path to where you find yourself now. And quite often, seemingly innocently, because the motivation for ego behavior is unknown to the human construct. The motivation for egotistical behavior is often unrecognized. So we all like to think that we're so innocent and that we're all, I'm okay, everybody else is all screwed up, I've got a handle on this and everyone else. But like when something is specifically confronting you, it's a misuse of denial to try and shoof it away and pretend that it's okay and everything, like just deal with it. No, this is really wrong. This doesn't feel good. I don't like this, whatever. You've got to be honest. And then you can put your finger on your nose. Well, where have I chosen wrongly? Where have I chosen against my higher good in this regard, which has brought this manifestation of whatever it is that I'm looking at now to me, right? It's only brought it to you again it's only brought it to you so that you can learn to choose again and get yourself back on track. It's not to say you're guilty of anything, or you're a sinner, or you're a bad person, or anything like that. It's like we're all babes in the wood, right? We don't know why we're here, how we got here, what the hell's going on. We're completely innocent of any wrongdoing or anything like that. And the nature of our experience here is very much like we've fallen down a mine shaft and Jesus is trying to get us out. But to do that, he needs us to cooperate by grabbing a hold of the rope so he can pull us up, and stop letting go of the damn rope because your feet are coming off the ground and you're afraid you're going to fall again, right? He's got you. Jesus has got you. Just hang on to the damn rope. Learn to let go of your fear. And that's a good analogy. All right, we're all hanging on to that rope and Jesus is pulling us all up. It's like one at a time. Here we go. But we're all together. It's individually, one at a time we're there, but individually, it's one mind waking up, one mind being resurrected, one mind being brought back to its wholeness, to its remembrance of wholeness, which has already occurred because it occurred in one mind. It occurred in one experience throughout the full dominion of consciousness, where all of a sudden somebody didn't die. Right? Now, that occurred in every mind. The moment that happened, that occurred in every mind because it occurred in mind as a whole, in the Christ mind. That's what I am. That's what you are. We are that. It's just a dream. It's already actually over, but for the band at the end, and the credits, Anyway, be unconcerned about the happenings in the world. Don't worry about the election. Don't worry about who's going to win, what's going to happen after that. Will there be a war? Will there be a meteorite come from, I was watching the idea of Mau Mau or whatever it is, Mau, the big strange interstellar thing that came and pinged off and went off faster than it came in, sort of thing, which proves faster than momentum technology, etc., is now coming back, right? It's now on a trajectory back to Earth. Scientists are thinking, don't know how I do that. I guess, what's that when you paraphrase something? Anyway, scientists are now thinking maybe it'll collide with Earth and it's 60 kilometers long or something and whatever. Don't worry about it, right? Let go of worry. Let all your heart, your soul, your power and your mind be with God, right? Let everything be with God. Let your mind be up. Let all your thoughts be up. Think celestially, Learn to think beyond the box. This is not what I am. This thing of hair and skin and voice and smell and touch. Life is not what you think it is what it actually is. Just because the experience of one's life seems to be contained to the particulars of the bodily senses and things like that, it's much more than that. God is really big. There's a kind of a Monty Python accent to that. Really big, but huge. Allow your mind to drift out and to go where it wants to go. Allow your mind to open for the Christ in you, that light in you, to go home, to remember. Well, I love you. The sun's really like, It's really quite fun when you can see that it's already over. It's really quite fun when you begin to allow your mind to be liberated from the constraints of your beliefs and your preconceived notions. That may take a miracle, but you're entitled to miracles. Prayer is the medium of miracles. Pray for the healing of the mind that believes it is a body. If you're struggling with cancer, if you're struggling with a financial problem, if you're struggling with a esoteric problem, anything, pray for the healing of the mind that enjoys struggling. Because what it is that you're experiencing is what it is that you want to experience. You want to experience the struggle. It doesn't matter what, you want to experience the pain, the suffering. It doesn't matter how it's couched, cancer, finance, esoteric, whatever, spiritual, whatever. It doesn't matter the package that comes in. It's the emotionality, it's that energy that you're trying to confine and dense it down into an even more dense, dark light association of identity-based thought. I'm hopeless, and you go right down. It's like, hang on, why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? Why don't I just choose to be happy for no reason at all and allow the particulars of that choice to be presented to me in an opportunity where I can simply say yes and enter into a new understanding of myself, which is actually an old understanding because you go out the way you came in, or you enter into a more familiar or more natural feeling understanding of yourself that does away with any further necessity to have to continue to try and maintain and control sort of dark light associations or miscreative thought processes. You are already whole and healed. I mean, there's nothing about you that needs healing because God created you as an expression of itself, and God creates in its own likeness, which is forever perfect. Think of yourself that way. I'm loved and loving. Think of yourself that way. Peace to you.